CEO of Mainspring, and with me is Mike Burgee. He's one of our senior developers. And by popular vote, we have, well, I guess you guys didn't have too much of a choice last week. We kind of pushed this on you. But FileMaker 19 was released, and we're excited to talk about some of the features that that FileMaker has. And unlike just a feature slam where we're just here's a bunch of stuff, we're really trying to match it up with some use cases, some things that you could actually do with FileMaker to make it go. So I threw a little poll out there to see who's using it and who isn't. Typical housekeeping. Go ahead, Mike. It's ideally it's not a one-way webinar. Go ahead and throw yourself up on the camera so that we can see who's who out there and the whole thing. Participation. Go ahead and throw something in the chat. And I've got a couple other guys, a couple other Mainspring folks that are kind of watching the chat in the background to answer those questions. If you registered for this user group, you're going to get a follow-up at a recording, so you don't necessarily have to jot every single little thing down. I typically probably would get it out like Monday or Tuesday of next week to allow everybody to get a chance. So, like the old school, Mike, I don't know if you're old enough for this, beep, where you beep and go to the next slide. Beep.
Yeah, sorry. The Zoom poll's locking up my controls.
Yeah, so just
because I'm using PowerPoint, not Keynote.
Yeah, it's the dirty Microsoft app that we'll shun ourselves, we'll shun our eyes. So one of the big features, and I probably should have thrown a slide together that talked a little bit more about some agenda or order. But one of the biggest features of FileMaker 19, and we really want to get into it, is the concept of core ML or machine learning. And this is a concept that I'm going to try to explain in layman's terms. And Mike, if you want to jump in and stomp all over me if I say the wrong thing, we'll do it. But it's really the concept of being able to put the usage of it would be take a picture of an object within a container field of FileMaker, and then FileMaker, the app will allow you to predict what that image actually is. So in this case, we've got a model that was created. We put a picture of a horse into a container. The model can discern between horses, cows, goats, whatever the story is, and it then says that this picture is 99.1265% chance that it's a horse. So if you go to the next slide, basically how it works is perfect. FileMaker doesn't have the ability to have this model trained within FileMaker, so you have to go to Apple, the Apple site, and you have to use Xcode and a product within Xcode called Create ML App to create and train the model. Well, when you're running this application, how do you train it? How do you say this is a horse? You end up uploading just a ton of pictures of horses. The more horses you can upload into this thing, the better chance it can do to figure it out. So the first step of the process is you have to create this model. And that is what you're going to use within FileMaker to then take a picture, compare it to this compilation of pictures, and then determine the predictive outcome. So within the script steps of FileMaker, you would load the model, you would execute it, and then you would unload it. And the reason you do that, if you go to the next slide, is that there are already models out there. And you can kind of see some of the use cases here, like the first one, predict the depth from a single image, classify a single handwritten digit, drawing classifier that learns to recognize new drawings based. So you can also do text, and I think that Mike is going to have a demo for us in just a second, where you can look at text that would be in a text field of FileMaker, and based on modeling, you can then predict whether it's good, whether it's like a review. Is it a positive review? Is it a negative review? Things like that. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. You got to create a model. You got to train it. You use it with Core ML, which is an Apple product. You'll get the slide deck, so all the hyperlinks and everything are here to go out and try to figure out things about it. But then once you have a model, you could have 20 models that do different things within your FileMaker ecosystem, and you just load the proper ones, and then you unload them when you're done with them. It does take resources and things like that. The caveat, the little star for the whole thing, is that it only works with Mac OS and iOS. It's not available for Windows yet. So how did I do, Mike? On a 80,000 foot skipping across the pond, what do you think?
Pretty good. You're pretty good.
Would you give me like a 7?
I give you an 8.
Oh, nice, nice. So practical uses, you know, I hear about features all the time, and I think, man, where are you going to use that in real life? So over the weekend, I was watching a National Geographic special where they were tracking blue whales, and they were trying to figure out where blue whales actually have their babies. And believe it or not, they didn't know. You know, the whales only come up, they only show that much of their bodies, then they go down. And really the only way that you could do any kind of scientific research on a blue whale is to tag it and then get like an electric signal that's going out. Now, the problem there is the whale has to come up, the satellite signal goes up, and you can only tell where the whale's been. You can never tell where it is currently. It's not like GPS. So one of the ways that they identify whales is with the patterns that are on the side. And every whale, that's like a signature. So if you take a picture of that signature, and you know, the scientist that was conducting this study, he found where they had the calves. He found, you know, he got a great picture of the whale. He actually had to go back to his office in Seattle and thumb through, you know, multiple shoeboxes of photos, because he had collected these shots over years to try to find out what blue whale that was. So I thought it was a pretty cool use case from the standpoint of perhaps that guy could use FileMaker, create a Core ML, put all the whales pictures into that, and then provide this picture, and then it would say with 99% certainty that it's this whale. Well, the end of the story is he actually went through his, you know, bazillion shoeboxes 2 months later, and he found that this whale was on the West Coast, and you know, he knew it because he'd been taking pictures of it for a really long time. So that's kind of a use case. Now, are we all chasing blue whales? I'm going to say probably not, but the focus of this is to kind of get the creative juices going. So maybe if you're doing mice, maybe if you're doing, you know, mice cages, maybe if you're doing parts, maybe if you're doing, you know, other things that you only have a picture but you don't know what the heck the thing is, this is the system that you would build and put together. Mike, I think you have an example of barcodes.
Yeah, I'll talk about that. My demo is something different that we'll go into in a second here. But we just had somebody contact us this morning asking about, they have a barcode scanning app that they use FileMaker Go for. So FileMaker Go is in iOS, so it has the Core ML features. And they're saying that they're starting to have trouble with scanning the right barcode when they have 2 or 3 or 4 barcodes that are really close to each other. The iOS camera is recognizing whatever the first barcode is and scanning that. It's not letting them choose. So with Core ML, you can also do what's called object detection, and that's the second screenshot down here where it shows the back of somebody's card. This gives a good example of what machine learning sees when you put a picture into it. It'll actually highlight objects there. So you see There's red boxes around where it's recognized that there's text. There's blue boxes around objects. So we could take a picture instead of a barcode scan of that label that maybe has, 6 or 7 barcodes on it, and then we'd be able to detect each one of those barcodes and ask that user, prompt that user with a view that says, which of these barcodes did you mean? So the other thing, since this does optical character recognition, OCRing for short, you can use this to do things like snapping a picture of somebody's business card or their driver's license or something, and having those details automatically be extracted into your database. So that's some of the exciting things that we can do.
That's kind of a cool feature, because that typically only comes with like hardcore CRM systems, instead of, and being able to build something like that in FileMaker, and using FileMaker Go would be awesome. So.
Okay. So the key about machine learning is to think about there's 2 types of machine learning that FileMaker can implement based on Apple's core ML framework, and one of them is the vision type of model, and that's where you're putting in an image or maybe a document or a picture of a PDF or something, and it's giving you information out of that. It's extracting information or determining information about that. Is this a horse? What kind of car is this? The other one is Core ML General, which is it's text analysis. So in general Core ML, I'm going to give it some text, and I'm going to analyze that text for specific things. So I could use that to detect what language something is written in. So if I'm got an international business where I'm receiving emails in one email account with a bunch of different language types, I could automatically determine what language it is and forward that email on to the right person. If I'm doing IT help desk, like we have a help desk that we run for FileMaker support, we could analyze the contents of an email that somebody sends us to see if they're angry or not angry. And then we can respond accordingly by automatically escalating those tickets. So what I've put together here is a quick little demo file, and I'll get this over to Marshall so you guys can see it as well, to demonstrate both of the types. Now, to do this, I loaded models that were already available online that I found. So there are these .ml model files. You just store those in container fields in FileMaker. So
and those are the apps that have been trained, or the little models that have been trained.
These are
somebody is already
pre-trained models.
And so, where did you find them on the internet? Where are you looking around for models? Are you just Googling
I'm looking
ML
on
model,
GitHub.
Or?
But you can look around online for pretty much anything. So I use GitHub, and I'll go and I'll do something like, this was one that I found. These are pre-trained models that are available. So the one I'm using for automobiles is in here somewhere, and the one for sentiment analysis is in here as well. So this is lots and lots and lots of links of resources online that are put together in a list that you can go check out.
Mike, would you say there's any kind of centralized library of these? Or is it just
really,
Googling, hunting and pecking, and trying
or
to
training
these?
your own models?
Okay.
The idea with Xcode's free, so there's no charge to get a copy of Xcode and that training app. So it's free to train your own models. You just have to have the source data to put in there. So if you're training a vision model, you have to have a lot of pictures of your stock. The more you put in, the more accurate your results will be. So I just use these two pre-trained models. This one is actually built from doing sentiment analysis of IMDb movie reviews. So it uses a review score of positive or negative to then read text out. So I can use the data that was collected through IMDb in order to analyze the sentiment of my own text. So I quickly put together like a little layout about cars. This incidentally, my daily driver is a Toyota RAV4. And I put together a vision model and a general model in here. And the vision model is super easy. We're just gonna load that model, and then we're going to analyze that model. And that does, you analyze the model with this new FileMaker function called compute model. So I'm just passing the image into that model, telling it what I want to do, and saying I want the threshold of everything that's 0.1 or above. And then when I'm done with that, I just unload the model because I'm done with it. So that's very simple. It's just a 3-step process of load the model, analyze something, and
Why do you have to unload it? Why couldn't you just load it up and leave it there?
you can leave it loaded. I'm imagining that when it's running the core ML framework in the background, that it's taking up your system resources like your memory and stuff. So if you don't unload something, it could potentially cause some performance delays. Because machine learning is actually, it's pretty resource intensive because you're searching this model and it's running a lot of computations in the background.
Now, does this load up on the server side or does it load up on the workstation side, or can you pick?
So you can do it if you have a Mac OS server, but if you have a Windows server, like most people do,
right.
You do it on the client side.
So you'd have to deploy the models to the client as well.
But since the models can be stored as FileMaker record data, so there's no problem.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay, cool, very cool.
All right. So I use this pre-trained model, and this is actually a very good example of why training makes a difference. So I know this is my 2011 Toyota RAV4, but you can see that the highest confidence number here, which is 66%, says it's an ASX abroad version. So if I actually go look up that car, I can see that the ASX abroad version is, oh yeah, it's kind of similar. But that's why it says that it's only 66% sure that it's maybe this car, which is a Mitsubishi from Japan. So it does find Toyota RAV4, but it's all the way down here with a confidence of 1%. So if I had a lot more pictures, like if I had put this picture in my model to train it, it would be like a 99% match. So the more you train your models, the more accurate they're going to be. But it's important to realize that it's not a perfect system. All of these vehicles probably look pretty similar to what a RAV4 looks like.
And that just means you got to take a lot of angles, you got to take a lot of shadows, you got to take a lot of lights, you really got to
up, down, and all around.
I know this is super new technology, Mike, but is there kind of a baseline that you've heard of? Like if you do a confidence and is it like 67, you better go get more pictures? Like even if it picked the Toyota RAV4, is there like a threshold
Yeah, if I was using this for making business decisions, I'd want to see an 80% match or above.
At least, okay. All right, cool.
For something like this. And it really depends on what you're using it for. So like a common use for machine learning is determining if an image is pornographic or if an image is violent in nature. So a lot of things like Facebook, they're already using machine learning. Twitter as well. So if you post a picture and it gets flagged, usually it's machine learning where, maybe if it matches between like 25 and 60%, it's going to escalate it to somebody to manually review. And maybe if it's above 60%, they're going to automatically, delete that image. So the confidence level really depends on what you're trying to do. But those people in their machine learning, they're also filling in, hundreds of thousands or millions of images into their model to train it. So, all right, but that's kind of a good thing where, you can make up, it's FileMaker, so you can build it with your business logic for how you want to determine things. So how I implemented this core ML general, and it's the same thing. So I'm going to analyze my review. I'm going to load my model. I'm going to analyze my note. and then I'm going to unload the model and kind of refresh my portal. So this would be another common use case. You could give an automatic like thumbs up or thumbs down if a review is negative or not negative. Sorry. Not everything's tied together in the demos. So if I
nothing up my sleeve.
If I say this car sucks, the axle broke. Why isn't that analyzing it now? All right, it should be analyzing that. Let me try analyzing my description here. That one's negative, but if I paste this one in here,
it was working in the pre-show.
It was working. So there, well, you can tell this changed. That's a positive label. I'm not quite sure exactly what happened with this between now and then. No, something went wrong.
Well, I think that's interesting right there. The label is positive. Put this car sucks and the axle broke off. Grab that and throw that into the description.
Oh, it's true. If I manually run it, then it changes to negative.
So then in theory, you could take that positive or negative and then color code the review so that you could see very quickly. And I think that's what you were trying to attain.
This isn't JSON.
There it is.
Yeah, I broke it by trying to format this. All right.
Look at all that analytics going on.
Live action
now,
shooting.
You know, the use case here, I don't think would be like if you had 4 reviews, because we can quickly see that. It would probably be more like if you had, you know, 1 million reviews, or maybe HR kind of things, and you need to go through just a ton of information, and you only wanted to bring up the red so that you could address those. Now, Mike, can you do any kind of scaling on this? It is terrible. Can terrible be scaled less bad than this car sucks, the axle broke off?
That goes that's your model training as well. So okay. This one's just a simple thumbs up, thumbs down, positive or negative. You can also do, you could have it return a score as part of this as well. But this model that I just grabbed off the internet didn't have it. The model just returns a label of negative. It doesn't return a score. So if I was doing scoring, maybe I would take my 40 to 60% mark and make those like neutral. Then I could have like warm positive, hot positive, cool negative, cold negative, start breaking it up by that percentage score of what something does, and then make business logic on it. In this case, it was just to quickly color code some reviews to show.
Yeah, and it's super interesting to me that you're using the IMDb model, the trained IMDb for this, which they're not even related. But
well, the thing about it though is the IMDb model is capable of also analyzing large chunks of text. So it's designed to analyze an entire review, whereas something like this, where I just do I don't know. So it's not trained for very short things. Mm-hmm. You can kind of tell like how it's analyzing these negatives, like just by keywords, sucks, broke, terrible. Those are going to be things that tip it off as negative. So in this case, it takes a look at this and it breaks it down word by word, and it says, okay, 2 out of the 7 words are negative words. Gotcha. And then it'll say that this off the are words that it doesn't analyze. So it only analyzes car sucks, axle broke. And when you only analyze those 4 words, because it ignores the off this, then it's 50%. So it's obviously probably going to come back as negative. So That's
what
kind
I
of how
yeah.
training works.
Yeah, so what I need you to do is, it sounds like you've got negative words, which are suck and broke, and you've got neutral words, which is this and the. You've got positive words. It feels like to me, Mike, that you could put the same concept around counting cards in Vegas. So could you whip me up could you whip me up a FileMaker Go that I could take to
Are we
the
going to talk
table?
about the Chris Hippolyte story about how he was running fantasy football?
Yeah, yeah, that's funny.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess we've, no pun intended. I think we've kind of beat this horse to death,
Yeah.
as far as how it's kind of a complex thing, and it's one of those. I would say it's one of those features like until people start embracing it and really coming up with some use cases, and it starts sprinkling out. It's awesome to have it, but it's
So
it's going to take a little while to.
yeah, I think FileMaker's road mapping, like in theory, they'd like a way for you to create your own models with your FileMaker data.
Oh,
Obviously,
nice.
that would be great. So like if I have a picture library in FileMaker with 20 gigabytes of photos and I want to stick them in there with metadata so that I can train my own models, it's not beyond the realm of possibility. The interesting thing to see where they go from here is to see if they're able to create PC compatibility, because this is built all on an Apple framework that was designed for OS 10 and iOS. So if they're able to come up with a way to do it on PCs, that would be great. That would kind of open the door for a lot more broader use cases.
Yeah, yeah. So you have inside knowledge that that feature is definitely coming to build
No,
training.
it was theory.
Mike is in a lot of the ETS stuff, so he knows he knows stuff that he could tell me, but then he'd have to kill me. Okay, awesome. So that's kind of the core ML that we spent quite a bit of time on that. So the next thing is card window support. So Mike, what do you think about this? What's gonna impact here? What could you not do and now you can?
Yeah, so the big thing here is, and I've got another demo prepared, so we'll talk about this. Um, go into this contacts file here. So what a card window is what some people refer to as a modal window, but it's essentially a window on top of a window. And what that lets us do from a interface perspective is really develop interfaces around our layouts that are more intuitive, and you don't have to travel around the system. You can stay in the same place. So previously, the new Windows script step in FileMaker would, in WebDirect, the web browser thin client for FileMaker, it would open up a new tab and it would log you on. And then if I was sitting on the server looking at how many people were connected, it would say there were 2 people connected for Mike Bergy. So that's less than ideal, both from like a licensing standpoint and for like a window management standpoint, because now you've got what happens in this window. If I try to edit a record in this window, it's already locked in this first window, that type of thing. So there wasn't really any good window management. But now with card window support in WebDirect, I can make these types of things where I can pop up a window inside of a window to do a number of different things. There's so many use cases for card windows. You can have little quick forms where you're filling out data about a record or maybe related data. You can have preview windows like this where you're going to open up and show the full-size version of a document or an image. Another thing I use it for is something like this, where if I have email addresses in here and I want to send an email out of the system really fast, I'll pull that up in a window and have just a very simple thing where I can fill out email, send it, and send that email. And all of the important thing is that when you do that in another window, you don't lose the context of your parent window. So when that window closes out, I'm still here exactly where I was. I haven't interrupted my workflow at all. So the card window in general is just a super powerful thing that we've been using for, I think when it came out, version 16, 15 or 16 card windows came out. So we've been using it, but it's been limited to the desktop clients because in WebDirect it just opened up a new window.
Gotcha.
So another use case we commonly use is calendars. Somebody will click on an event in the calendar and it will pull up a card window with the event details of that calendar event. So you're kind of familiar with that already when you're using your Outlook calendar and you double click on an event, it opens it up in a card window for you. So all of those interfaces now are possible inside of WebDirect.
Gotcha. Okay. Then next up, did we skip the JavaScript one?
Nope, that's the next one.
Awesome. So we've got JavaScript Web Viewer integration. You don't really have a demo for this one, but what is this?
No, for those of us that were online last month, the presentation we had about dashboards really sums up what's great about the JavaScript Web Viewer integrations. So what this new feature is it's a compilation of a couple script steps and functions for the web viewer that you can use to communicate back and forth with a web viewer. Now, a web viewer is kind of, for the non-developers here, web viewer is kind of like us loading a web page in there. So anything we can do inside of a website, we can now do inside of FileMaker. So if I want to make really complicated charts like this in FileMaker, I can now do that. But the important thing is that it's much easier now with version 19 for me to send the data into the web viewer that makes up a chart like this. So all of this is based on a whole lot of data that needs to be loaded. So I can load all that data out of the database and send it to my web viewer really easily. But also the return trip. So previously, if you wanted to click a web viewer, something in the web viewer, like if I clicked on any of these points and I wanted to pull up those records in FileMaker, it was pretty tricky to do. You had to use some tricks to be able to do that with like FMP URLs and stuff like that. But now I can just click that in the web viewer and it will run a FileMaker script. Like FileMaker will detect I clicked the web viewer and run that script. So it's super easy for me to create like very interactive things. And there's super powerful charting libraries. Oh, that one's broken out there. Jeez. First two I clicked on.
Everybody's demo's breaking.
Yeah, here you go. So something like this, where you can just have like super interactive charts, changes in the electorate. So you can aggregate massive quantities of data. So if you've got millions of records in FileMaker, you can make dashboards, you can make charts out of them, interactive reports, that type of thing now, super easily. We can also use the web viewers themselves to create forms. So if I wanted to create a form, let me show. Like if I wanted to create a responsive design, I'm trying to find one of these that has an actual form in it, sorry. So here's another example of like a dashboard. So if I wanted to create a dashboard and I wanted to have that responsive so that it automatically changes depending on like what screen size I scale to, those types of interfaces are now possible. But also, since I can just pass that information and trigger a FileMaker with it, if I wanted to do like a search engine here inside of my web viewer that actually searches in FileMaker, I can now do that really easily. So what we're starting to see is the ability to do a seamless web-based interface inside of FileMaker rather than depending on traditional FileMaker layouts. And FileMaker layout objects that can't do things like scale when they slide.
Gotcha. So lower cost of development, higher functionality, higher usability, higher visibility. Yeah, sounds good. Yes, please. Then Siri Shortcuts. You know,
Yeah.
obviously this is also another one that's kind of Mac only or
Mac only.
iPhone.
Yeah. Hold on, I'm gonna pull up here, and we're gonna. So Siri shortcuts were introduced a couple versions back in iOS, and I'm gonna pull up. Do the. It's gonna show my face first, but I'll switch it to my iPad. Oh no, I've got my iPad. Good. All right, so this is my iPad. And what Siri shortcuts do is it's designed, it's like making a FileMaker script where you want to automate actions that you would normally have to press to go to something, then click something to run it. So it's automating your processes. So in FileMaker Go 19 here, I made a very simple time card thing that's got time in, time out, and my total time here. And there's a couple of scripts in this file. So I'll close that file, close out of FileMaker, and go into the Siri Shortcuts apps. And you see I have two things in here. One's called clock in, one's called clock out. So it's actually very easy to recreate these. I'll show you how to create one really quick. So you just go to apps, you go to FileMaker Go, and you can kind of say, you know, it remembers ones you've already created over here on the left. But if I want to start from scratch, I'm going to choose a script to be run. I'm going to say like my time tracker file is there. I want to run that clock in script, and I can feed it a parameter. Normally I just say like shortcut input or something like that. Then hit next, and you can name it. Hit done, and there you go. So now I have that automated process created. So how this works is just whenever you're anywhere on your system, you can do, hey Siri, run shortcut clock in. And it'll actually like open up that file and run that script for me and show me that I've clocked in. So there's my clock in right there. So I can go back to doing my business. I could have it close out again if I wanted it to close out instead of showing me something that I logged in. So I can go sneak off, play games or whatever. And then whenever I'm done, hey Siri, run shortcut clock out. And it will clock me out. So there I was for 30 seconds. So this is pretty big to have the ability to do this. It opens up a whole new world of automation processes. The downside is it's hard to share these automations, so it's not so easy for me to send those shortcuts to somebody else's iPad. But in the FileMaker side of things, it's super easy. When you're writing your scripts, if you want to share this script, you see there's this little microphone icon here. If you just right click, there's a new option in this right click menu called enable or disable shortcuts donation. And that will let iOS pick up that you're able to run this script with Siri shortcuts. The other part you need to integrate it is under managed security. Under your extended privileges, you need to make sure that the FM URL script is enabled for your accounts. So those two things, that's all you need to do in your file to enable Siri shortcuts.
Super cool. So that could be if you're in an environment where you really can't enter data per se, that might be a good way to just communicate.
Well, if you have accessibility issues, like if you're deaf or blind, and you're counting on Siri to do some automated tasks, you can do that. Siri shortcuts work for a number. There's hundreds of apps that work, so you can actually chain actions together. You could do a whole set of things. You could send an email, send a text message, create a record in FileMaker, all in the same command. Gotcha. And the command is what you name it, and it recognizes based on that command's name.
Okay.
You can also feed it input as well. So if I say clock in with rounding or something like that, I could send a parameter to the FileMaker that says round it to the nearest minute or something.
Gotcha.
All right, so back to PowerPoint.
Okay, so those are what I would call kind of the major changes. With FileMaker 19, if you haven't downloaded it and you don't have your link, just throw something to answers@gomainspring.com. If you're already a client of ours and you are doing your licensing through us, we're going to have a record of that. We can shoot it to you. As a platinum partner, we can sell licensing cheaper than FileMaker can. So if you're not a client of ours, again, just throw something to answers@gomainspring.com. We can take care of you. If you're not a client of ours, don't be shy. Throw something to answers at. We'll have Maria, our FileMaker coordinator. I see that she's on here right now. She'd be happy. She would be, as she says, she would be delighted to reach out to FileMaker to figure out what your download link is to get it over to you so that you can start using FileMaker 19. But it's got a new name and look. They changed the logo. We talked about card window support. We talked about the Java web. There's two that we didn't really talk about, the execute FileMaker data API script step. Is that, Mike, if you had to give 30 seconds or less on that, what would you say?
30 seconds or less.
That's all you have, man.
That helps us become more like real programmers. I don't know if that really makes sense. That might make sense to some of the FileMaker developers in the room, but it lets us consume our own APIs so that we can do development that's standardized. So the same development that we're doing for our API clients and like other people that are connecting to FileMaker, we can now do ourselves. And that helps because we can create documentation that we can use and standardize our system. So we'll create better quality systems with less work.
Awesome. And that seems to be the mantra of FileMaker, making it easier for us to do more things with the dollar. I tell people all the time, it feels like FileMaker, well, I know it is because we do development on the other side too. It's a 10-to-1 proposition with what you could do with FileMaker, as far as the economics are concerned. NFC tag reading. You were joking around with me earlier that you were looking for an FC tag because you were excited to demo this.
One. Yeah, I was going to create a demo about this. So NFC is near field communication. So when you're using like Apple Pay to tap to pay, or if your kids are running around with amiibos on their Nintendo Switch and reading those out, the little things that those scan, they're NFC tags. So NFC tags just lets you store a little bit of data on essentially a sticker. It's not a very complex like ID badge or anything. But I was walking around my house with a scanner trying to find an NFC tag that would read, and I couldn't find any. So, and I think Amazon's delivery time was 3 days, so I didn't get them in time. But NFC tag reading is super huge, especially for people that are doing things like inventory control, lockout, tag out, safety stuff, inspections.
Is that little thing that is in like a package so that they have to swipe it on the counter when you buy something to deactivate it? Is that the NFC, or is it something different?
It could be. It's very similar to that technology. Okay. If it's not that technology, some of that stuff is proprietary, obviously. Like obviously I can't tap my credit card and read out the data from it. There's security protocols in place. But
right. Can you think of a use case that somebody, I mean, you kind of know.
3 use cases. In inventory. So like if you're if you're taking unloading a box into a warehouse onto a shelf location, you could scan the tag on the shelf and pop something there, and it would update the database with that location. Lockout, tag out. So like if you want to, if your security protocols require like 5 people to be in a room to open up a device, you could have all 5 of those people scan that NFC tag, and then it would send an action to somewhere else that says 5 people have scanned. Mm-hmm. Security tagging, so just like general access. So like if you had like member badges for your super secret friends club and you wanted to scan people's badges to enter in, So that's like trade shows. You know, trade shows will have the thing where they scan your badge to visit the booth and stuff. You could use it to play like hide and seek games, or not hide and seek, but what do you call them? The I blank on this one thing. Geocaching probably, but geocaching you probably want to use the other one, the
Scavenger hunt.
Scavenger hunt was what I was looking for. Yes, thank you. But
I love it. People are yelling out. I love it. They're yelling out answers. That's perfect.
There's another technology that FileMaker Go also has called iBeacons, and iBeacons can be used to determine if you walk within like 20 feet of an iBeacon, you can have it read out that iBeacon. So like if you're walking around a museum and you want people to be able to get information about that without directly having to tap it. You could use an NFC tag to tap it and pull up a record, but something like iBeacons gives you a little more range. iBeacons isn't really GPS because it doesn't work on satellites. iBeacons is closer to Bluetooth than it is to GPS.
Gotcha. Okay, so those are that's kind of the Mount Rushmore of the 19 features, and then the next slide, I think we've just got a spattering of a bunch of stuff. You know, there's new templates, ability to create apps from cloud. The page count is kind of cool because it solves that problem. Page 1 of 10. Ability to copy and paste toolbars. I mean, you can kind of read this. Like I said, I'm going to send this out so you don't have to necessarily take notes. Nothing too mind-blowing there. It's some good stuff. What do we got on the next page?
And then
some of the
deprecated
stuff that they've taken out. No longer supports the creation of Runtime Solutions. It's no longer, I think Windows 7 died at least a year ago, maybe a year and some change. So FileMaker isn't supported for that. There are some issues with, or not issues, but there are some considerations with 64-bit, where you have to start using the 64-bit applications. And I've actually seen that. I had a 32-bit Outlook. 64-bit FileMaker. I was trying to send emails and it would just throw up and tell me that I couldn't do it.
I ran into that issue yesterday. Yeah.
I think we saw that that issue when we were doing our Form Pro thing, right?
Yeah.
We had to. It was an insurance application that we were writing right in the beginning there. So the next slide, I think that pretty much wraps up the changes. We've already had the demos. I see that Ryan Klenk is fast and furious. He's one of our senior developers too. He was here last month with the dashboarding. And I see he's been meticulously answering questions and things like that. Again, if you have comments, questions, feedback, anything like that for our user group, because in theory it is our user group, throw something to answers@gomainspring.com. But it feels like Brian is pretty much caught up with everybody and has done a really good job but by answering some. So again, if you've got another question, throw it to answers and away we go. I think the next one is announcements. Claris Engage, I don't know if you folks had been thinking about going to DevCon. FileMaker has announced that they've changed their name to Claris. They've changed the name of DevCon to Engage. It's probably going to take us, it took me years to stop calling the Arizona Cardinals the St. Louis Cardinals, back in the day. But it'll take me forever to stop calling this thing DevCon. But it's officially Claris Engage. So if you hear about it, it's going to be on August 4th and 5th. It's absolutely free. It's doing tracks from 9 a.m. to 4 p. on Pacific Daylight. They're not going to get the FileMaker folks up at the crack of dawn to do it for us, the East Coasters. They're going to start. Keep an eye on the Claris website. They're going to post the tracks on July 7th, And I think it's interesting, but there are going to be, the sessions will be limited. So it's not going to be kind of a free for all, everybody can get in. So our next office hours is in between now and Engage. So we'll have a lot more information about it. The other news, and Mike and I got in a little bit of a debate about this morning. I don't know whether I'm allowed to tell you this or not, but FileMaker 19 is the last versioned number of FileMaker. The strategy that they're moving to is more agile. They haven't really discussed with us, like, are they going to release something every month, every 2 months, every 6 months? We kind of don't know that. I imagine that they'll be talking about that in the Engage general session, but it's going to be much more agile in delivery. There were, I don't want to say a huge amount of things, but like I said, Mike was in the early release team that was providing feedback to Claris, and there are definitely chunks of things that they had demoed and that they had in FileMaker 19 that were pulled for the release. So I imagine those things are going to start trickling out, and we'll cover those as they come out. So I don't really know a whole lot about the release cycles, but as you keep your licensing up to date, those cycles will be delivered. And I'm sure it's going to be an in-app thing where, just like now where it says there's a new version available, it'll be super easy to update folks. And then finally, we have another announcement about Cough Mug, which is Mike's, Mike leads this, it's another user group. It was conducted in Columbus in a facility, but due to COVID, Mike has been moving it back to Zoom. And tonight it's a much smaller group. So he has from 6 to 6:30, kind of doing kind of a social hour. So if you really want to participate, it's an awesome way to get in there. Mike, I think we were going to drop the link to the we're going to drop that link into the chat so that folks could take advantage of it. But 6 to 6:30, it's basically a social time, get to know each other, and then from 6:30 to 8, Mike has done a great job at getting some various folks in there to do presentations and things like that. So we are now coming to tips and tricks, which is kind of my favorite. Like, I ask the guys all the time to, just tell us something about FileMaker that we don't know, and let's have it. We got a really good one from Ryan last week about the layouts, but no pressure, Mike.
Yeah, my tip's lame compared to that. But it's surprising me. I thought about this yesterday when I was doing a little bit of user training, and people don't realize it, but one thing FileMaker does very well that a lot of other applications don't do is they list all of their keyboard shortcuts just in the menus themselves. So if you ever want to spend some time getting to know your system a little better and how to use things faster, just scroll through the menus and kind of check out some of the keyboard shortcuts. This came up because somebody didn't know how to, their password for FileMaker was incorrect, but they didn't know how to bypass the auto login that they had set up. So they had set their keychain to start it up, and it was logging them in with the wrong password each time they needed to know how to update it. And I was like, well, yeah, it's just control or option when you're opening up a file, and you see like all the menus kind of slightly change to have like the option menu. So when you open up a file, you hold down the option key on Mac. I think it's Shift on Windows. It pulls up the login menu. So often overlooked, but always relevant is check those out. You can also hotkey all of your up to 10 scripts, I believe. So like if I do command 1, it will run this clock out, this script for me. And if I do command 2, it'll run that lockout. So you can create kind of your own shortcuts here as well. And there's ways to create your own like custom menus and custom menu actions and custom shortcuts as well. So FileMaker is super versatile in that. But yeah, my tip is to look at the right-hand side of the menu, not the left-hand side, and you'll find all of these shortcuts there.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, we have one more question for the poll, which is, basically we like to try to figure out what folks want to see for the next meeting, and it's almost like Russian roulette, because different guys have different topics. So based on what topic wins, we will it'll either be Ryan, Mike, Pratt, whoever. So we'll give you guys some chances to vote there.
Marshall and I are placing bets on which one the topic's going to be.
Mine is actually losing horribly.
Both of your choices are.
Both of my choices are losing horribly. And, again, I don't want to make this a one-way conversation. If you have ideas of topics, please, please, please throw it into answers@gomainspring.com, because we definitely want to come up with topics that are very interesting and compelling for everybody. Our next meeting is going to be July 16th. Like I said, that's going to be before Engage, so we should have more information to share, more information that we can put together. And it actually looks like I'm going to let this thing go. If you haven't voted, please vote. But it looks like API integration examples are starting to pull away. And I don't know who, Mike, who is that? Is that you or is that Ryan? Or is that I need a volunteer? Okay, awesome. It looks like we're going to go ahead and do API integration examples. We've got a pretty interesting use case internally where through APIs we've connected Harvest, Trello, and HubSpot. And just the way that we've put those together has really increased our productivity and increased communication with everybody. So that is, here's actually the results of what came up. I thought it was going to be performance best practices. I bet Mike, and thank God he's too far away from me to shake hands, but I bet him $1,000 that would be the one. And it was close. It was close. So next July 16th, we're going to be doing API integration examples and trying to demonstrate how you can use FileMaker. So that's going to be a little bit more technical. I'm trying to keep this balanced. I'm trying to keep this on the road of not too technical and not too business analyst, but that is definitely going to slide a little bit more toward the technical side. If you want to make sure that you're getting the recordings and everything, and you can't make the meeting, just go ahead and register. And anybody who registers, I'll make sure that they get all the information. So if nobody has any other questions, we are going to bid you a farewell, and we'll see you in July. So thanks so much for coming, and let us know, answers@gomainspring.com. How can we continue to make this super valuable for your FileMaker experience? Thanks so much. Have a great day.